Hey there, Casa, and happy spring! Chicago natives are all too familiar with spring's arrival. We endure months of record-breaking cold and tons of snow throughout our winter season. And finally, around this time of year, the weather starts warming up, trees start growing leaves, and we start noticing more flowers and greenery sprouting up throughout our neighborhoods. Spring has officially begun. Last year around this time, we were actually on a pandemic lockdown. We had to get creative on doing spring activities amid COVID. Studies conducted last year reported significant increases in outdoor activities such as nature walks, wildlife watching, hiking, and gardening, to name a few. During the pandemic, respondents said in Nature, they cherished a greater sense of mental health and well-being, exercise, and a sense of identity. Study author Tatiana Gladkeek says, "This study is a timely snapshot of the central role nature plays in our well-being and how important access to nature is during challenging, uncertain times like this pandemic." On this podcast episode, we'll talk about the benefits we reap from going green, some tips on how to start your own garden, and how composting not only helps the environment, but it can help feed the communities and families we serve. Stay tuned for this episode of Casa Cafe Chats podcast, Going Green. All right, so let's chat about gardening. So in the intro, I mentioned how COVID introduced these victory gardens last year. Many of us were left anxious seeing food shortages in grocery stores, shelves were empty, and many decided, why not grow my own produce? Once this phenomenon happened, in a matter of weeks, seeds, seedlings, and fruit trees were all sold out online and in gardening centers early on in the pandemic. So whether gardening started off as a coping mechanism, or maybe you just want to eat greener, turns out gardening can have tons of benefits. So let's talk about them. First, gardening can actually help with memory. In a 2014 study, analysts found that horticultural therapy, which is using gardening to improve mental health, may be an effective treatment with patients with dementia. After residents have raked and planted in vegetable gardens, researchers discovered increased amounts of brain nerve growth factors associated with memory in both males and females. Studies have also shown positive effects on using gardening as behavioral health intervention. 93% of people who have engaged in gardening sessions reported to have improved their confidence and motivation. People have reported gardens giving them a sense of achievement and boosting self-esteem. I mean, the list of benefactors could go on. Anything from absorbing some vitamin D while you're outside, which helps straighten bones, to boosting your mood. In a recent study, students who participated in school gardens reported feeling a sense of personal well-being. Horticulture is also one of those activities where it unites people of different ages, abilities, and backgrounds and really fosters a solid community. Here at Casa, the school-age program, which provides remote and after-school enrichment services, is getting to work on their own green space. Tiffany Santiago walks us through their garden, which is currently a work in progress.
When it comes to children, it can allow them to see how they deal with disappointment if seeds don't germinate and don't turn into flowers, or they can actually experience a type of joy and accomplishment when they grow something from seed, when they put it in the soil and watch it grow and take care of it and tend to it and know that they grew something. There's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of seeing something beautiful and being part of making something more beautiful. It also allows them to have a sense of responsibility on the earth, and gardening helps with finding out about some people go into recycling, some people go into composting and things like that, and the children start caring about their environment and their surroundings, even their community, because they feel like they're really a part of something. We're doing a spice garden, all the herbs, oregano, parsley, all those kinds for the kids so that they can be a part of something that actually turns into food. So they understand that this is where a lot of food comes from: vegetables, fruit, the herbs, the spices that we use. They don't just come from a magical place called the grocery store. They can see it, they can have a sense of pride, they can have a sense of understanding. A lot of times children, let's say if they don't like tomatoes, just as an example, are more often willing to try new foods when they participated in like cooking it or prepping it, and especially if they went from putting the seed in the ground, raising that plant up, harvesting the fruit or the vegetable itself, and preparing it and serving it as themselves. And they're so much more willing to try it because they see it and they say, I grew this, I did this. It's just such a sense of accomplishment, and it helps also sending serotonin levels into their brain, that happiness chemical that goes and allows them to process things that children just normally are not able to communicate because they're children. Having something, even such a small thing, some people even just do potted gardens. It just has this process and this meditative way about it that allows people to be a little less stressed out, have a small sense of accomplishment as you see it grow each day, and a sense of pride and beauty, because who doesn't want to be a part of something that is beautiful?
Starting your own garden may be easier than you think. Experts recommend starting small, but not too small. Having only one type of greenery may be overwhelming, and you may end up overtending your garden because you just simply don't have enough to do, and you lose interest as plants take a while to grow. Start off with 2 to 3 plants, and this could be in a small pot, indoors, or out. One of the biggest tips, and probably the most important, is choosing the right soil for your plants. It's the soil that helps gardens thrive by recycling nutrients, capturing water, and fights pests and diseases. Think of soil being the fuel source for your plants to grow their best and taste their best. You can't have healthy, productive plants without rich, soft soil that allows the roots to grow deep enough to soak the nutrients. So, how do you get your soil in its best condition? Compost. Composting is the natural process of recycling organic matter, such as leaves and food scraps, into a valuable fertilizer that can enrich soil and plants. Anything that grows decomposes eventually. Composting simply speeds up the process by providing an ideal environment for bacteria, fungi, and other decomposing organisms. The result of the decomposed matter, which looks like rich soil, is called compost. Farmers refer to this specific soil as black gold for its nutrient-dense composure that can make for amazing crops in gardening and agriculture. Composting can be done a few different ways. When you compost, you decrease the amount of greenhouse gases you emit into the atmosphere, and you help reduce climate change. Composting is really one of the easiest ways to reduce your carbon footprint. Many neighborhoods are taking advantage and turning empty lots into green spaces. These green spaces act like composting sites and produce gardens. Community members and volunteers harvest these spaces to have more accessibility to fresh fruits and vegetables to families. Community gardens are a win-win for everybody. We're able to reduce our waste, harvest some nutrient-rich soil, and fight the battle with food insecurity in our communities. Last thing I can leave you with are some tips to start composting. Composting is so much easier than it sounds. All you have to do is gather your food scraps like banana peels, tomato tops, apple cores, and mix it with carbon materials like paper bags, cardboard, or newspaper. Mix about 50% of each in soil and give it some time. Once all the material is dark with no particles of food, your soil is ready to go. Going green is a really good idea. Whether you do it to self-care, a coping mechanism, to give back to the community, or just to keep your brain sharp, gardening can benefit your life in many ways. Thanks for tuning in. Casa Cafe Chats, Going Green.
I'm ready just to see them see something beautiful. And don't you want to see something beautiful? We need it right now, ¿verdad?